he goes first.
I won't talk about bodies and symptoms. No bodily function talk, no accepting text from the kids.
So, I know we weren't expecting to do a class tonight, but when I got back to my room and we got everything done kind of early, I felt like we did that hike today. You've been talking about all the steps we've been doing, and we've done a lot, and it's true, even though we've done yoga in the mornings, we're probably not doing as much as we typically do, and I thought we needed a deep stretch class. So when I went back to my room, I was like, I need some yin. And I know you teach yoga nidra, and I thought I could gift you a little yoga nidra at the end. It won't be the full 45 minutes, of course, but we can at least get some of it in, like a kind of an abbreviated form. So when I started thinking about, well, I like to theme my classes, what am I going to theme it? I was obviously thinking about the space we're in and the fact that Shiva is here. And then we had music playing outside that I was listening to, and every single mantra was based on Shiva. And I happened to bring this Shiva with me. And typically, even though this is not a sitting deity, you typically don't sit your deities on the ground. So I put another cloth underneath, just for respect. When I started the yoga journey as a student, I really didn't know much about the myths, the stories, the deities, until I went to yoga teacher training. And even in teacher training, we didn't talk about them that much because we were diving into philosophy and talking about the yoga postures, and we did a ton of meditation and learning the history of yoga. So it was a little bit later on that I really started more and more about the deities. And one of the mantras that I absolutely loved that we did in Sanskrit was Om Namah Shivaya. And it was one of the ones that I knew well, that when I had my son, I would even rock him to sleep at night and I would sing Om Namah Shivaya, or the Yantra mantra to him. And I know we've seen Shiva a lot, and I just wanted to go over some of the symbolism first. This one is actually a little bit of a different depiction. Can you see the water coming out of his head? That is from Ganga. And Ganga sits on top of his head, and with that water flowing from Shiva's hair, it represents the flow of sacred knowledge. And we as yogis learning and absorbing the sacred knowledge. And it even has, remember we were talking about the marks on the forehead, and the three stripes that go up represent Vishnu, and the ones that go across represent Shiva. So that's represented here as well. You have the Abhaya Mudra, which is no fear, be not afraid. You have this trident here. It represents creation, preservation, and destruction. You have the cow Nandi, which is the wishing cow. He sits on a tiger skin, and it represents the power and control over our own animal instincts. The snake wrapped around his head, representing Kundalini, and Kundalini being the consciousness that's rising. But the snake also is symbolic of transformation, rebirthing, renewal, which is something that Shiva is known for. Here you see the drum. I don't know if you see the drum there. The drum represents the rhythm of creation. It also represents the rhythm of time. And so I was singing Om Namah Shivaya a lot and not really understanding what Om Namah Shivaya was really kind of trying to invoke. And what its purpose is to, or going to Shiva, what this represents is the attribute of God that you go to when you're trying to dispel any darkness, when you're wanting the light to overcome your hang-ups, when you're wanting to get rid of habits, when you're wanting to go beyond your normal everyday patterns if you know it's not serving you. It's about letting go of Maya, which is illusion. Even the crescent moon, which you can see really well here on the statue, that moon represents not only consciousness, but the fluctuations that we experience in life, just like we see the waxing and waning of the phases of the moon. Things are always in flux. So anyway, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about the symbology, but you may not know Shiva. There's an incarnation of him where it's half male, half female. And it's that perfect depiction of the divine masculine and the divine feminine, which when I see and hear that, I think yin yang. And so any active yoga that we're participating in, when we're focused on alignment, muscular engagement, flow practices, that's a masculine practice. You know, we're firming up our muscles and we're trying to control what we're doing, you know. And yin is the exact opposite of that. Yin is about embracing that feminine aspect and being soft, being receptive. It's not really about the alignment, and the purpose is different. So when we're focusing on the active yoga, we're focusing on the skeletal system, we're focusing on the muscular system. But with yin, we focus on the connective tissues, what overlays it, the fascia, the joints, the ligaments. In fact, if you're wanting to become, or know anyone wanting to become more flexible, right? If they're always doing active yoga, they're only going to go so far with their flexibility. So you could offer some yin yoga, which can actually increase their flexibility, if that's what they're gaining. However, there is also something called hypermobile. And there's some people who are naturally hypermobile, who would probably love yin because they're so good at it. Their joints are already so open. They need the strengthening, you know, a little bit more so, because they've already naturally got that going for them. So yin and yang are perfect complements to each other. I always like to suggest to students, if all you're doing is active, throw some restorative and yin in there. And if students are only doing restorative and yin, throw some active in there, because you need to strike the balance of both. Now, with that being said, we have this beautiful full moon that we've seen outside. We saw it at the RT last night. The full moon happens to be a total lunar eclipse. It's actually not going to be total here. It's total in America, Africa, I think a little bit of Europe. But anyway, we still get the eclipse energy even though we're in India. So with the eclipse energy, eclipses are about sudden shocks, changes, revelations. Could you think it's the air making you cough?
I think so.
Because I can turn that off.
No.
Okay. I don't want it to just blow on you. Bless your heart. I think it is. I'm going to turn it off.
I'm so sorry. It's cool enough in here now too. So.
Let's just try it. You're sitting right underneath it.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about the eclipse energy is also about endings and beginnings. And with that, it can be transformational. And so Shiva represents transformation. So I really thought it was perfect that I thought of Shiva, that Shiva's here, it's the full moon, it's the eclipse, we're doing yin, like, let's just bring it all together. Now, if you have difficulty being in tadpole pose because of your knees, basically what we're going to be doing is, and it's not necessarily tadpole, because you can be in extended child's pose. So for you, since you don't have issues with your knees, you're going to be in child's pose with your arms walking over to the right side. And if you can't do that with your knees, I've already thought of an adjustment for you. You can be on your back. Basically, I'm wanting you to do a side bend.
Okay.
So you can do the banana asana or the crescent moon shape with your upper body and lower body moving to the right. So go ahead and get in those first positions. That's going to be our first pose. We'll get right into it. So you guys at home, you can take crescent moon or yes. the side child's pose. And so because we're doing yin, I want you to soften into that position, meaning let your elbows spill to the ground if you are in the child's version. And if you're in the crescent moon shape, allow the elbows to maybe slightly bend. And it's okay if you cross your ankles. And notice how we're opening up the left side body. And we're opening up the left side body first because the left side is that lunar feminine side and the right is that solar masculine side. So typically in active yoga, we go from right to left. In yin, we move from left to right. So close your eyes. And begin taking deep sips of breath. And feel free to use that deep diaphragmatic breath or a soft ujjayi breath. And I want you to reflect back on our walk that we did alongside the Ganga yesterday. There was a point where we were walking through and there was mantras playing and we heard Jaya Jaya Shiva Shambho, Jaya Jaya Shiva Shambho. And so that's another Shiva mantra. So if you've been trying to dispel any darkness, if you've been trying to overcome any hangups or ignorance, if you've been trying to break through the veils of illusion, if you've been wanting to create more growth and transformation for yourself, in these quieter moments, you could be repeating Shiva Shambho. It's a simple mantra. And using that mantra on repeat helps to calm and slow the wheels of the mind. And so in yin, we hold the poses for a little bit. And we're beginning with the side bend to open up the breath, to decrease the tension around the lungs. So they're more apt to fill up and empty out. Now on your next in breath, we're going to transition to the other side. So if you're in child's pose, lift the head and heart. Walk your hands across the mat over to the left side and then bow back down with reverence and humility. And if you're in that crescent moon, shift your arms and legs over to the opposite corners of the mat. Resting your eyes. That's another difference between yin and yang. So in that active form of expressive yoga, we're opening the eyes, we're setting a drishti pose. We're expressing something, and we're looking outward. But in yin, it's about closing the eyes and looking within. And then if you start to get distracted by the noises coming from the outside of this space, you can do Shiva, Shiva, Shiva Shambho, or Jaya, Jaya, Shiva Shambho, or just Shiva Shambho. Keep it simple. And if you're not resonating with the mantra or Shiva in general, you can just hone in on your breath. Because even in the breath, we have the yin and the yang. The breathing in, the inhalation is active. It's enlivening. It's that masculine quality. And the out breath, that outpouring, that state of release and letting go, is that state of surrender, which is the feminine. Breathing into that right side. Maybe more specifically into that right lung. Now, if you have been lounging in that crescent moon shape, go ahead and bring yourself to center. Lining your body up, bending your knees, rolling over to one side. And then we're gonna all meet each other in tabletop position. If you're inside child's, walk your hands back to the sticky mat and rock up to hands and knees. And when you're in tabletop position, drop your head a moment and just make sure that your knees are stacked up underneath your hips. Look ahead at your hands, make sure they're stacked underneath your shoulders, unless they're really tight or tender, and in that case, it may feel a little better, walk them just a step forward. Let's go ahead and take that left leg back behind us, curl the toes under, and then just push back into that calf and heel. We have been walking a lot, and sometimes that can stiffen the calves. And I think a few of us were getting some Charlie horses and cramps in the lower legs and feet earlier this week. Now shift your shoulders back over your wrist, pick up that left foot and step it on across to the right side. Tuck the toes under, push back into the calf and heel, but look over the right shoulder. Good, now lift that left leg, bring your neck to neutral, then gaze off to the left, and you're gonna step that left foot all the way over, planting your foot, that's it. Now open up your left hand and fan it out and up towards the heavens above. Now this is what we call stargazer pose. Fan out your fingers on that bottom hand and fan out your fingers on the top hand as well. Find a position that's going to be good for your neck. So you can keep your neck in line with your spine, chin in line with your chest, just looking towards the side wall if that's best. Or if you want to look to where you're directing the energy, you can turn your gaze up towards the ascended hand. Choose what feels best for you and where you can properly breathe. Breathe with depth and control. And Shiva is said to be Lord of Yoga, the founder of yoga, and there were 7 original sages. And I thought it was interesting to hear this week from our guide that the 7 stars of the constellation represent the 7 sages. I had never heard that before. On your next exhale, you're going to bring that left hand down and keep your neck in line with your spine, but just casually glance down at that space between your hands. Fixate your gaze at one spot. And just notice if you feel a little stretch through that left inner thigh. It's nothing too grand. And you're welcome to stay here to keep it really gentle. You also have an option to deepen this by turning your left toes up and sinking back towards your right heel. So obviously protect your right knee. You can inch back if you don't want to fold all the way back. And we're not going to hold this one terribly long. In fact, let's just hold it for 3 more breaths. After that third, you can inhale, shift all the way forward, landing your left knee, and we're going to flip the left hand up, thread it underneath that right arm, sink down towards your left ear, but slide your right arm forward
Droop down to the forearm, flop down and face plant onto that left cheek and temple. And it's even okay to let your belly kind of droop towards the ground. The yin way is to get super lax in the pose. So maybe close your eyes and scan through the upper body and see if there's anywhere else you can just breathe out and ground down, surrendering towards gravity. And like I said earlier, in these quieter moments, you can meditate on the flow of the breath, or you can use that mantra, Shiva Shambho. I even prefer taking a longer, deeper exhalation in these poses because it helps me to reduce the holding, to reduce the tension. It's like an ice cube melting outside on a hot day. Now let's bring the right hand back in front of the face. Unthread that left arm. And then we'll create that same sequence. So step your right foot back. And you can push away from the fingertips to stretch out your back calf and heel. Oh, this one feels tighter to me than the left. You may notice the opposite. Those little observances are what we're trying to pay attention to so that we are heightening our self-awareness. Shift forward slightly. Step that right foot over to the left side onto the wood floor. Gaze across that left shoulder as if you're trying to gaze towards the foot, but please don't strain the neck to do so. Pick up that right foot. You can send it over to the right side, planting that foot, sweeping that right arm out and up. And then this is where you determine for yourself, is it best for me to gaze up? Is it best for me to keep my gaze to the side? You can even turn your gaze down towards that foundational hand. Good. From the twist, you're going to exit out, lower the right palm down, and then set yourself up so that your hands are parallel to each other. Stacking the bones and joints unless you need to take the hands slightly forward, which can alleviate some of that wrist pain. Keeping your neck in line with the spine, just looking down at the coloration of the mat. Isn't it funny how this orange kind of saffron color comes up a lot, especially here in Rishikesh. Even a lot of the paintings, even the chair in the back of this room. All right, let's bring that right knee down. We're going to thread the needle the yin way. So turn your right palm open, loop it up underneath the left, maybe slide the left forearm forward and out. And this is where you just sink and surrender. And this is one of those poses we'll be holding where you can close your eyes. You don't have to worry about doing anything wrong because, again, yin doesn't have all the alignment cues. So it's okay if your feet touch. It's okay if your feet are apart. Scan through your body, just even ensure that your facial muscles are relaxing. Your brow, the space between the eyes, your cheeks, your jaw, your teeth, your mouth, even your tongue. Let's slide the left hand back. Let's unhook that right arm. And then we're going to set up for downward facing dog. So if you walk your hands a good step forward beyond the shoulders and then start to curl your toes under and then shift your hips up and back to downward facing dog. What they have been calling mountain pose here, which I love because Shiva meditates on the mountain. So press into your hands, lift high through your seat. And it's okay to have a soft bend in your knees, but regardless if you have a bend in your knees or not, let's bring a little activity to the lower body. So in other words, pick your sits bones upward and drop your heels downward and see if you can create those two lines of energy occurring at the same time. Just like when we're focused on the spiraling of the muscles through the arms, right? The upper arms rolling out, the forearms rolling in. Just like we focus on the thighs rolling in and the outer spiral down into the heels. Keep your neck neutral. If the eyes are open in this more active position, then gaze towards that space in between your feet. And on your next in-breath, let's travel the feet forward, slowly but surely, one step at a time, lifting your hands along the way, coming towards the top end of the mat, but keep a bend in your knees, and hang the upper body, your arms, your head, your neck downward, like a ragdoll position. You can even give a little bobble to the head. If you prefer, you can even cross your arms. And I want you to just play with something for a moment. I want you to close your eyes. If by chance you have your arms crossed, even though there's not alignment cues here, I do want you to feel the difference here in your body. So right now, just have the arms kind of more as they are, right? In front of the face a little bit, come closer to the legs, which I can tell you're both doing. And then I'm going to create a little adjustment with your arms. I just want you to feel it. When you bring your arms a little bit more forward, kind of beside your ears, notice if you feel a little bit more of an opening at your chest and in your heart. And if you prefer the other way, being a little bit more lax, a little bit more limp, then you can go back to where you were. Now we know the cobra is wrapped around the neck of Shiva. And we talked about the symbology, but also think about the snake shedding its skin. And so these eclipse times are times where, you know, things may be taken from us that we weren't expecting, or we may receive some shocking news. But lots of times, if something's taken away, it's giving us space for something new to enter. And I like calling eclipses a course correction. Course correction in case you're not on your path leading towards your specific destiny. Now we can fight against that, or we can flow with that. Think about your head is falling towards the floor right now, and maybe think about your hair and Shiva's hair and the Ganges river coming down from Shiva's lock of hair. Think about how we've been sitting by the river. And if we were to cling to the banks of the river, we would never get anywhere. We would be stuck at the same place. Eventually we have to let go, we have to go with the flow to see where we land, to see something new, to even have a new experience. So basically I'm sharing all this to say embrace the changes that may be forthcoming. Dangling here. I want you to pressurize your feet a little bit more, and I want you to use the power of your legs, and I want you to inhale, come all the way up with your arms reaching overhead, fingertips reaching up towards the sky. Good. As you exhale, I want you to bring your hands around to your waist. I want you to roll the shoulders back, tip your hips forward, and bow back. But we're not staying here. We're going to bend the knees really deep, and then we're going to let the hands slip down from the waist beside the feet, hands open, head bowing towards the shins. And this is what's called a standing form of child's pose. So see if you can, it's not dangling, so see if you can bend your knees deeper, 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 deeper. Yes, like right there, Barb. And I know that may not be great for you, Helene, so you can stay in dangling pose if the deep bend's too much. Now we're going to take 3 cleansing breaths while we're here. Take a deep breath in through your nose. And let the breath sail out through the mouth. That long audible sigh. Second breath in. Breathing out. One more, breathing in. And breathing out. Good. Now turn your hands down so you're on the fingertips and step your left foot way back behind you. Lunge that front knee and then lower your back knee to the floor, and feel free to untuck the back foot. Now I'm going to give you an option here. One option is to just let the hips get heavier. And you're welcome to even flop your head and even soften your elbows, leaning into that front thigh bone. In Swarupa Yoga, they actually cross the sternum over to the top of the knee and bow down, but you know, it doesn't really work well with women and the anatomy we have necessarily. So it's okay if you skip that part. So as you're melting down here, close your eyes and start to go into the feeling of the stretch. Even though we are working that front hip flexor, notice it's really targeting the left. Stretching out the iliopsoas. Which is a great thing to work if you haven't, sitting a lot. And we have been sitting as well as walking a lot. This is one of the dragon poses, so feel free to deepen that breath into that Ujjayi type of breath. It's what almost sounds like a dragon breath or breathing fire. Next inhale, let's slowly lift the head up. And let's move that right knee back. Let's drop down to the front side of our legs and take a yin form of Sphinx, which is different than the active form. So if you separate your feet a little bit, give a little shimmy and rock to your hips, because a lot of our holding, it can be in our shoulders, it can be different places in the body, but sometimes we really hold in that low back. So we're just trying to loosen it up here. And let your forearms be stacked in front of you. And it doesn't have to be an active one where you're lifting your head up. You can actually shrink here. And if you enjoy bowing your head in this position, you can lower the head down. If that's too much for your neck, or if it's not good for your neck, then obviously keep your head up. Protect your body and honor your limitations. But what I enjoy doing in this yin form of Sphinx is starting to tip my head slightly towards the left shoulder, and then moving it to center and tipping it slightly to the right shoulder. Just to discover a particular thread that may be calling out for some extra needed attention. So if one side feels like more flared up, because we are sleeping in different beds this week on different pillows, so maybe hold that side or space that feels a little bit more intense. But from that intensity, notice if you're starting to tighten your jaw. And then if you want to hover and stay, be still in one particular space, that's fine. If you like that casual movement, that's okay too. And notice how when we shrink in the pose, how the weight is more on your abdomen, not just the lower belly, but a little bit of that upper belly too. So make sure you're breathing down deep into the belly, meaning you should feel a little pressure there as you inhale as it balloons out. And a lessening of that pressure as you exhale. parallel to each other. Lengthen your leg bones back so you can feel a little engagement in your glutes and start to press through the forearms and elongate your spine, lifting your head up, and then walk your hands back. Slowly lower your chest towards the floor, curl the toes under, and then from here, we're gonna elevate ourselves up and roll it back to downward facing dog. And you may have to baby step forward once you cast your hips up and back. Beautiful. Now we're gonna take that lunge to the other side. So if you feel the need to come down to your knees first and then step that left foot forward, that's a gentle way to do it. If you can step your left foot all the way forward and up and through the hands, then you can do that as well. Sinking the back knee, shin, and back foot. And then collapsing down. Dropping through your hips. Sinking through the pelvic floor. Relaxing the elbows so there's a little bend. Even though we're working, yes, with that iliopsoas, we're working with that forward hip flexor. We've also got the angle of the head encouraging the energy flow to come towards the third eye. Third eye, which is about our innate wisdom. Place of discernment. And if you want to go back to the mantra Shiva Shambho, you can add that in. On your next inhale, let's gently start to lift the head up. We're going to curl the back toes under. We're going to see if we can step. Sometimes it's like a drag to bring that foot forward. Coming into that dangling pose, but we're not going to hold this position. So really root your feet and at the same time start to rise all the way up to Urdhva Hastasana. And then as you exhale, bring your hands down to prayer position at your heart. Good, now step to your left where you're facing that side wall where your feet are wide apart. And go ahead and measure up. So measure up, and I know we're not being very active, but I do want you to measure up where your wrists and ankles are about in alignment. So when you extend your arms out, is it possible to get the feet below the wrist? If it's too much, obviously don't do it. Okay, we're going to be going into what's called Skandasana. So you can let your arms go. And we're going to turn the feet slightly toward the corners of the mat. Now, with your knees, right, then you can stay higher in this position, bringing your hands to your heart and working in to one lunge, coming up, and then working over into the other lunge, okay? And then if you want to go a little deeper into that position, You can bring your hands to the floor and then eventually walk it over and lunge into that opposite knee. Yeah, and you're just casually inhaling, coming up, and then exhale, taking it to the other side. And the reason why I wanted to add this in is because I've also heard this pose called crouching tiger. And since Shiva rests on a tiger's skin, and we're just casually moving from side to side. One more to each. I felt like this would be good after that hike too. And now turn your feet so that they're square with each other, parallel, and just fold down right through the middle. Your hands are welcome to kind of slide back in between the lines of the feet. So the crown of your head is facing the floor. Your eyes can close. You guys look good with not hanging too far back in your heels. So that earlier position where the head was hanging down, it was kind of drawing it towards the third eye, and now I'm bringing it towards the crown of the head. And I wanted us to get here before we do our twist and move into that little nidra. This gives us some replenishment. It's a great replenishment for the face, for the sensory organs. It's bringing everything towards the pineal pituitary glands and the head. Obviously opening the hamstrings, decompressing the low back. Forward folds are about release. So you'll notice in yin, there can be a lot of forward folds. You don't have to be as structured here. And on your next inhale, I think it would be nice to walk the hands forward and lift the head up just to kind of even out that blood flow first. All right, and you're going to come down to your knees. And I know that we've had the feet facing the back of the room for Shavasana, but I really don't mind if the feet are facing me, so you can do it either way. But I would like you to come down to your back, to open your arms out in a T and let your knees roll one direction. So left, please, knees to the left. Just kind of lounge here. Breathe well here. Notice perhaps where you feel a little stiff in the twist. Is it showing up in your legs? Is it showing up in your low back? Is it showing up in that right shoulder? Don't label it, judge it. Just awakening your awareness to your body. So this whole idea of letting go also comes up in yogic philosophy. If you look at anything like the Yoga Sutras, if you look at even the Bhagavad Gita, which I know we've discussed this week, there is a common thread of practice and non-attachment, practice and non-attachment,
practice and non-attachment. We do the practice and we let go. We do the work and we let go. So we're not seeking reward. We're letting go of expectations. We're letting go of control and manipulation. We're letting go of outcome. We're letting go of fear. Good, now inhale, draw your knees back through the middle. And let your knees cross over to the right side of the body. And as soon as you kind of drop into the position, maybe notice, is there more or less of a gap between the legs, or if any at all? Is there more or less a lift in the shoulder away from the knees? Are the pockets of stiffness showing up in the same areas or not? Just for that state of wonderment and curiosity, do your best, leave the rest. Again, another theme of the Gita. Practice of non-attachment. And that shows up even with the breath. We inhale to bring that life force in, but then we also have to release it out. Next in breath, let's bring the knees back to center, and then you can slide your legs out unless you need to hug the knees in for a brief moment. That can also help to reset the back after the twist. You can also roll your knees around if that feels like a good massage for the low back. Now take your corpse pose. And I'm going to kind of give you a little adjustment in your corpse pose. Obviously, if you don't like the adjustment I give you, you can go back and create another position of your liking. I'm just going to give you a little traction through your legs and a little rock with the feet. We're going to scoop the shoulders under and elongate your arms. So just as a reminder, the corpse pose. Began as a meditation upon death, not in the morbid sense, but as a way to realize when we get into a state of stillness, quietude, when we become that inner witness, we recognize that we are more than body, more than this vehicle, and more than our mind and our thinking and our intellect. We're going to
go through a yoga nidra. Which is sometimes called yogic sleep. However, our attempt here is to stay completely awake. Begin with a sankalpa, a positive statement or resolve. And feel free to create your own. Or you can take one of these as an example. I am calm and at peace. I am a creative, spiritual being. I am letting go of what doesn't serve me. I am enlivened and empowered. So you can take one of those, you can create your own, but whatever you have in your mindset, say it 3 times over in your mind. Let it begin with powerful words like I am or I choose. We're going to bring our attention now down into the right hand, more specifically the right hand thumb. I want you to imagine as you're relaxing that thumb from the inside out and the outside in, it's filling up with a high golden frequency. You can picture this as golden light. You can picture this as like nectar, like honey. Or gold itself. Perhaps liquid in form. Once you do this to your right hand thumb, go ahead and do the same with your right forefinger, middle finger, ring finger, and pinky. Allow that high golden frequency to fill up your whole right hand. And then start to draw it up through your right forearm, upper arm, right shoulder, and let it begin to slide down your right side body, trickling down through the right side of your ribs into your waist, filling up your right hip, and
coursing down to the outseam of your right leg. Until it touches your ankle. Bring that same awareness now to your left hand, more specifically, your left hand thumb. Relaxing it from the inside out to the outside in. Imagining that high frequency of gold as a golden light, like a nectar of honey or gold itself. And once it fills up your left thumb, cross it over to your left forefinger, middle finger, ring finger, and pinky. Allow it to fill up your whole hand. Slide it up through your left forearm, upper arm, and let it steep in that left shoulder. Trickle it down through the left side body, and the ribs to the waist, and landing in that left hip. Let it flow down the outseam of your left leg, until it arrives at your ankle. And imagine that golden frequency filling up your brow, lighting up your third eye. Let it flow down your face, through your eyes, your cheeks, your nose, your ears. Let it even fill up both the interior and exterior of your mouth. Let it fill up your throat. Let it glide down into your chest. And even more specifically, down into your heart. Imagine your heart bursting with that golden high frequency. So it's radiating upward and outward in every direction. Let it sink into your belly, into the core and center of your being. dropping down through the top of the right leg, from the thigh to the knee, to the shin, foot, and all 5 toes. Bring it down to the top of your left leg, from the front of the thigh, to the knee, down to the shin, foot, and all 5 toes. Start to feel this golden high frequency feeling up the back of your head. And imagine it flowing down through the shaft of your spine. Down through your neck. Across the back side of your shoulders. Down into the mid, back to the low back, and let it sit now at the sacrum. Allowing it now to surf down into your seat. Down the back side of each leg, from the back of your thighs, behind your knees, down your calves, and feeling up the heels of your feet. If you filled yourself with golden light, maybe feel as light as a feather, as if you were levitating, floating, hovering above the earth. If it was more solid or liquid, imagine yourself getting grounded, heavy laden, like a golden statue. And from this visual and from this sensation, asking yourself the question, am I still awake? If in fact you are awake, hearing, computing the words I'm saying, say to yourself, I am awake. From the wakefulness, state your sankalpa, your positive resolve, not once, not twice, but 3 times over in your mind. State that sankalpa once more, beginning with those powerful words of I am or I choose, fill in the blank. Now slowly begin to deepen the flow of your breath. Wake up the breath. And once your breath has deepened, inhale and bend your knees. Walking your feet back. Perhaps stretching the arms overhead, reaching to the back side of the room. And as you exhale, hug your knees briefly into your belly and chest. Gently sway. And turn over to your favorite side. There's benefit to both. And then press your way up to a comfortable seat. Sitting tall, sitting attentive, with your eyes shut. Notice the difference in your mind and body. Bring your hands to Anjali Mudra and bow your head humbly towards your heart and say internally and quietly within your Sankalpa 3 times over in your mind. And then I'm going to end us with that chant. Jaya Jaya Shiva Shambho, Jaya Jaya Shiva Shambho, Jaya Jaya Shiva Shambho, Jaya Jaya Shiva Shambho. Bringing your thumbs up to your third eye. May we all be inspired by our practice. Remembering the principle of practice and non-attachment. The light within me honors and bows to that beautiful radiant light in all of you. Namaste. Namaste. Thank you for being here for this practice.